All right, so this is Wednesday's review session. AP test is in 2 days. Tomorrow, just a reminder, tomorrow's review session will be pretty much as long as you guys want it to be and gals want it to be, so we'll be here. You can come and go as you please. You don't have to be here for the whole thing. Stay. If you want practice test stuff, we'll have that for you. If you want to do material, I'll review material and we'll go over it. Tomorrow we'll go over a lot of, whatever type of things you want to go over and a lot of odds and ends stuff. But today I know you want me to do FDR and the Great Depression? Anything else? I just know. So, jump back before FDR is elected, and we'll go back really to Herbert Hoover because he's an integral part or central figure here. Herbert Hoover, politician, the guy that ran the what was the administration during World War I? What was the food? No, it was called the rationing department. Administration. It might just be that. Oh, let's see if I got it here. His is that the Food Administration? It seemed too simple to just be the Food Administration. Okay, so he's running the Food Administration, which is taking up rationing programs during World War I. Do you know what rationing is, Jake, if I ask you? So when we talk about rationing for soldiers, we're divvying up food supplies. If we're talking about rationing in the citizens, Frank, can you tell me amongst citizens what rationing food would look like in World War I?
Like eating less meat and more vegetables and personal diet.
Good, exactly. So eating less meat, raising your own gardens, rationing things. They had actual stamps. During World War II, they had ration stamps where you had to go to the grocery store and instead of giving coupons, you had to give these little stamps to the cashier counters to buy certain things. And when you ran out of stamps, that's how many things you could buy of certain goods. He's the one who institutes like wheatless Wednesdays and meatless Tuesdays and things like that, where they're trying to get Americans to go without certain things to help the war effort. So, as president, though, Herbert Hoover is elected in 1928. He takes office in 1929. His campaign is one of the first to use the radio in the early stages of radio as it's becoming popular at the end of the 1920s. He is going to be in office from 1929 until 1933. So let's start by talking about the stock market crash. This is going to be the first major event. Stock market crash we refer to as Black Tuesday, and it happens in 1929. I'm going to read you a little excerpt about this. Throughout the 1920s, wild speculation in the stock market had driven up to a level that had no correction or no correlation to the actual value of companies receiving the investment. Do we know what speculation is? Speculation is? Can you tell me a little bit about it?
It's like what people assume the price of stocks are going to be.
Well, so one is speculations based on assumptions, and people were assuming that stock prices were what?
Going up.
Yeah, continue going up and going up and going up. Engaging in speculation, it is buying stocks, and a lot of times speculation dealt with buying stocks with money you didn't have. $100. You $100 down payment. A stockbroking company will put $1,000 into the stock market with your name on it, and then when your $100 turns into that $1,000 or more, they'll take their portion of it, plus you get your money back. And this worked for some people, buying stocks on margin or this whole speculation game of hoping to win betting on the stock market, hoping to win, worked for a while. However, it didn't happen. From 1921 to 1929, the Dow Jones went from 600 to 400, from 60 points to 400 points, and stock market trading became America's favorite pastime. Investors mortgaged their homes and foolishly invested their life savings in hot stocks, often buying on margin with only a 10% down payment. To the average investor, stocks were a sure thing, and most investors never even thought a crash was possible. However, the stock market crash of 1929 signaled the start of the Great Depression. However, it is not the sole cause of the Great Depression. So the stock market crash signals, and this is a really important phrase, signals beginning of the Great Depression, but did not cause it. Fundamental flaws in the economy began to surface in the late 1920s, but were hidden because of the surge in the stock market. Let me give you some examples, some underlying causes of the Great Depression. Agricultural prices had slumped, so slumping agricultural prices. Overproduction, right? During the 1920s, there was this trend to produce and produce and produce and produce. Production is another. High tariffs restricted overseas markets. So remember, after World War I, we passed really high tariffs. The Republican presidents in the 1920s passed, and Congress, the Republican-dominated Congresses, passed high tariffs, which tariff. If let me this real. If when we're as goods coming into the country, if let's say we put tariffs on radio. I know, right? This is what. If $10 to make, that's the selling price. Say it costs $8 to make, but the selling price is $10. It's made. Well, these tariffs made that by the time this good came to America, it's costing $14. Like tariffs as high as 40% on some durable goods. And now this helps American consumers. American producers. Because if American producers can't quite produce it for this level, their goods now seem more attractive and are more affordable compared to other people's. Does that make sense? Tariffs help American producers. But it makes things more expensive for American consumers. It also means that these countries over here are more likely to tax stuff that's coming in from America. And so we have this tariff war almost with other countries. Oh, you're putting tariffs on our goods? We're going to put tariffs on your goods. And this happens throughout Europe after World War I. Also, businesses began to slow investment. And many businesses began putting profits instead of investing into the stock market. Consumers were doing the same. When they did purchase items, they were buying them without money and using installment purchases. Did we talk about installment purchases? This is where people do this all the time now. Have you ever seen the commercials that are like, you could own this for 3 easy payments of $33.33? When really you should just pay $100 for that good? You can get a ShamWow. You can get 30 ShamWows for 4 payments of $12.22 or something like that. They do weird. And this is installment purchasing. You can't afford the $50 right now, but you could probably afford the $12-something a month for 4 months. And people were doing this. And that's fine unless you get laid off. If you get laid off, now all of a sudden that $12 becomes hard to pay. And that causes bad things for you and for the companies as well. Installment purchasing. The most important factor leading to the Great Depression was that there was a maldistribution of income, as too few people controlled most of the wealth, which led to underconsumption by the consumer sector. So another trend of the 1920s, or another underlying cause, is income inequality. that there was a disparity between the wealthy and the poor. All right. So the stock market crashes. It signals the start of the Great Depression. So Great 19 decade of the 1930s is the decade of the Depression. 1940 is World War II, and we can see the war production and war production. We get ourselves out of the economy. Who is going to these? It's real easy, and I think most kids across the country will try and talk about Hoover as standing back and doing nothing. Hoover was a Republican. Hoover, in general, embraced the policy called laissez-faire, L-A-I-S-S-E-Z, fair, F-A-I-R-E, laissez-faire, which means less regulation. Which president did we talk about? I don't know if we got to a fifth hour. But Reagan was also considered like a free market, laissez-faire, less government regulations type of president. Conservatives today are more laissez-faire. This is also true of Republicans back in the 1920s. Also true of Republicans back in the Gilded Age throughout the 1970s and 1870s, 1880s, 1890s. Like McKinley would be in favor of a hands-off government policy. Yeah.
Could you repeat what you said? I got confused with who supports laissez-faire and who...
Yeah, absolutely. See, thank you for asking that, because I'm sure there's other people. So if this happens, let me know. Hoover and all of the Republican presidents of the 1920s, which would be Harding, Coolidge, and Hoover, would all be considered supporters of laissez-faire policies, which would be supporters of less government regulations in the economy. Let businesses do their thing. Very relatively few government regulations. Promoting business. Government should promote business. This is known as laissez-faire, hands-off government policies. This is associated throughout history with the Republican Party. And I'm doing this in blue, and I probably should do it in red. My red marker's starting